Hook, let me ask you a question. What if losing someone was the greatest gift life ever gave you? What if the pain of loss was not a tragedy but a doorway to something far greater? We spend our lives chasing, holding, and fearing loss, but have we ever paused to, dear ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when everything you held close slips through your fingers like grains of sand. A moment when the world around you seems to collapse and you stand amidst the ruins of what once was. You feel the weight of loss pressing upon your chest, making each breath a labor, each step an effort, and in that moment, you believe that you have lost everything. But what if I told you that this very loss is the beginning of something far greater? What if I told you that losing what you thought you needed was the only way to find the one thing you truly required, yourself? I lost you, but in losing you, I found myself, and in finding myself, I won. This is not just a statement, it is a journey, it is an awakening. It is the profound realization that what you lose on the outside is often what you needed to let go of in order to gain something more precious on the inside. But of course, when loss arrives at your doorstep, it never feels like a gift. It feels like agony. It feels like betrayal. It feels like an empty space so vast that nothing can ever fill it again. Perhaps you lost a person you loved, a partner who walked away, a friend who turned into a stranger, or a family member who was taken by time. Perhaps you lost a dream, something you built brick by brick only to see it crumble before your eyes. Perhaps you lost a version of yourself you once held dear, and now, when you look in the mirror, you don't recognize the face staring back at you. Loss has many faces, but its purpose remains the same: to strip away illusions, to test the depth of your being, and to awaken you to the truth that was always there, waiting to be seen. In our deepest moments of despair, we believe that we are at the end. But what we fail to realize is that what feels like an end is merely a turn in the road. A turn we did not expect, a turn we did not choose, but a turn that is essential for us to reach where we are truly meant to be. The problem is that we have been conditioned to define winning by what we gain: titles, relationships, wealth, recognition. But the most profound victories in life do not come from accumulation. They come from liberation, from freeing ourselves of false attachments, false identities, false dependencies. True success is not about keeping everything intact. It is about breaking apart what no longer serves you so that you can finally meet the person who has been buried under the weight of expectations. The real you. Look around you. Nature itself teaches this lesson in the most silent yet powerful ways. A tree must shed its leaves in autumn so that it can stand bare in the cold, only to blossom again in spring. The river does not resist when it is forced to change course. It simply carves a new path through the land, shaping everything in its way. The caterpillar does not weep when it dissolves within its cocoon. It trusts the process, knowing that on the other side of destruction lies the miracle of flight. But as humans, we resist. We hold on. We mourn the lost leaves. We fight the changing currents, and we fear the cocoon, mistaking transformation for an end rather than a beginning. I lost you, and it was painful. It tore me apart. But in that emptiness, something remarkable happened. I heard a voice I had long ignored, the voice within me. Without the distractions, without the noise of attachment, I saw myself clearly for the first time. I realized that I had spent so much of my life searching for completion in others, in possessions, in achievements. And yet here I was, stripped of everything I had leaned on, and I was still standing. That was when it hit me. I was never incomplete to begin with. I had simply forgotten my own wholeness. You see, we chase love thinking it will fill the void inside us. We chase validation thinking it will make us worthy. We chase success thinking it will bring us peace. And yet, time and again, we see people who have everything yet feel empty, and people who have nothing yet radiate joy. Why? Because what we are looking for is not outside of us. it is within. And sometimes life takes away everything that distracts us just so we can finally turn inward and find what was always there. So, was losing you painful? Yes, but was it necessary? Absolutely, because without that loss, I would have never embarked on the greatest journey of all, the journey back to myself. And that, dear ones, is the real victory. Not in possessing, but in being. Not in clinging, but in flowing. Not in fearing loss, but in embracing transformation. So if you stand today in the ashes of what was, do not despair. If you feel like you have lost everything, understand that life is simply making space for something far greater. Because when you lose what is not truly yours, you gain what was always meant for you, yourself. And when you find yourself, you win. Dear ladies and gentlemen, there is a certain moment in life when you feel like the ground beneath you has shattered. The things you held close, the people you cherished, the dreams you nurtured, all gone, like the last embers of a dying fire. And in that moment, as the silence of loss fills the space around you, you feel empty, defeated, and lost. But what if I told you that this moment, this painful breaking apart, is not the end, but the beginning of something extraordinary? What if I told you that in losing everything you once held dear, you are being given the chance to find something far more valuable, yourself? It is a truth we often ignore because we are conditioned to fear loss. From the time we are young, we are taught to hold on to relationships, to identities, to dreams, to material possessions. We are taught that success means having more, keeping more, building more. And so we spend our lives gathering, collecting, accumulating, believing that the more we have, the safer we will feel. But life has its own plans, its own wisdom, and sooner or later, it will take from us the things we thought we could never live without. Not because it is cruel, but because it knows that sometimes, in order to truly live, we must first learn how to stand alone. At first, loss feels unbearable. It feels like a thief, stealing away the very things that gave us a sense of identity, purpose, and belonging. The departure of a loved one, the end of a cherished relationship, the failure of a dream, the sudden disappearance of what once felt permanent, it all feels like an attack, like an injustice, like a cruel twist of fate. We ask ourselves, why me? Why now? What did I do to deserve this? But the truth is, loss is not punishment. It is transformation in disguise. It is the universe's way of clearing space, making room, and leading us toward the person we were always meant to become. You may have lost a person who was once the center of your world, but in losing them, you are given the opportunity to learn that your world does not collapse without them. You may have lost a dream that once defined you, but in losing it, you are being asked to discover a new dream, one that aligns with the person you are becoming rather than the person you used to be. You may have lost a version of yourself, a version that was once comfortable and familiar, but in losing it, you are now free to create a new self. One that is more authentic, more aligned, more powerful. We often think that love, validation, and fulfillment come from external sources. We look to others to make us feel whole, to our achievements to make us feel worthy, to our possessions to make us feel secure. And yet, when those things are taken from us, we come face to face with a truth we have been running from our entire lives, that nothing outside of us can ever truly complete us. And in that moment, we have a choice. We can either let loss break us or we can let it awaken us. Imagine a seed buried deep in the earth. In the darkness, it does not know what lies beyond. It cannot see the sky. It cannot feel the sun. It only knows the weight of the soil pressing down on it. If the seed had a voice, it might cry out, "Why am I buried? Why am I trapped? Why has everything been taken from me?" But what the seed does not yet understand is that this burial is not an end, it is a beginning. Because only in the darkness, only in the isolation does the seed begin to transform. And one day, when it has gathered enough strength, it breaks open, not because it has been destroyed, but because it has grown. And in that breaking, it reaches upward toward the light, toward life, toward the vastness of the sky. You are that seed. And whatever loss you have faced, whatever pain you have endured, know this: it was not meant to bury you. It was meant to transform you. It was meant to strip away everything that was not truly you so that you could emerge stronger, freer, and more alive than ever before. It is a painful truth to accept, but one that will set you free. Because when you stop seeing loss as an enemy and start seeing it as a teacher, everything changes. You begin to understand that losing a person, a dream, or a phase of your life does not mean you have lost yourself. In fact, sometimes it is only through loss that we finally find ourselves. You may not see it now. The pain may still be too raw, the emptiness too vast. But one day, you will look back and realize that what you thought was the worst moment of your life was actually the moment that set you free. You will realize that every goodbye, every disappointment, every failure was leading you towards something greater, toward a version of yourself that is no longer dependent on anything or anyone to feel whole. And that, dear ones, is true freedom. Because the moment you realize that nothing external can define you, you become unstoppable. You stop chasing, you stop clinging, you stop fearing loss. You start living, truly living from a place of inner strength, inner peace, inner fulfillment. And when you reach that place, you will see that what you once called a loss was actually your greatest victory. I lost you, but in losing you, I found me. And in finding me, I won. Dear ladies and gentlemen, there is a certain irony in life. We spend years holding on to things, clinging to people, chasing dreams, believing that these are the very things that define us. We build our world around them, thinking that they are the foundation upon which our happiness stands. And then one day, in a way we never expected, life takes them away. The person you thought would always be by your side walks away. The dream you nurtured with everything you had crumbles before your eyes. The version of yourself you once took pride in is no longer the same. And in that moment, when everything you held on to disappears, you are left staring at the empty space where it all once stood. It is a strange feeling, isn't it, that moment when loss arrives at your doorstep, uninvited, unexpected, and unwanted. The world around you continues as if nothing has changed, but inside you, everything is different. There is a silence, a stillness, a vast emptiness that you never knew existed. And within that silence, there is a question that lingers, louder than anything else. Who am I now? You see, we are never taught how to lose. We are taught how to win, how to achieve, how to acquire, but no one prepares us for the day when everything we built is taken away. No one tells us how to stand when the ground beneath us has crumbled. No one teaches us that sometimes losing is the very thing that sets us free. At first, it doesn't feel that way. Loss feels like failure. It feels like a wound so deep that nothing will ever heal it. It feels like the end of everything you knew, and so we resist it. We mourn what was. We long for what could have been. We try to hold on to what is already gone. But no matter how tightly we grip, loss does not negotiate. It does not return what it has taken. It only leaves you with one thing: the space where something once was. But it is within this space that something incredible happens. At first, it feels empty, lonely, like a vast and endless silence. But if you sit with it long enough, if you do not run from it, you begin to hear something, a voice you may not have heard in a long time, a voice that was once drowned out by the noise of everything and everyone else. Your own voice, the voice of the person who has been there all along, beneath the layers of expectations, beneath the roles you played, beneath the masks you wore to fit into a world that never truly saw you. Because here's the thing, we often don't realize how much of ourselves we lose in the process of holding on to others. We shape ourselves to fit into relationships, to fulfill roles, to meet expectations. We compromise, we shrink, we bend, we mold ourselves to be what others need us to be. And in the process, we forget who we are. We forget the sound of our own laughter when no one is watching. We forget what truly makes us feel alive. We forget what we love, what we dream of, what we stand for. And so when loss arrives, when the person you thought you needed is no longer there, when the life you built no longer looks the same, you are left with no choice but to face yourself. And this, my friends, is where true transformation begins. Because in that moment, when you no longer have anything to hold on to, you realize something profound. You never needed it to begin with. You realize that everything you were searching for outside of yourself was always within you. You realize that love does not come from another person, but from within. That strength does not come from what you have, but from who you are. That peace is not found in things, but in your ability to stand alone, unshaken. There is a certain kind of power that comes with losing everything you thought you needed, a power that cannot be taught, only experienced. Because when you have faced the depths of loss and emerged from it, you become someone who no longer fears the unknown. You become someone who does not seek validation because you have already validated yourself. You become someone who does not need to hold on because you have learned that true strength comes from letting go. Look around you. Nature itself is built on this truth. The trees do not resist when their leaves fall. The river does not fight when it changes course. The night does not mourn the sun when it disappears beyond the horizon. Everything in existence understands that loss is not the end. It is the beginning of something new. But as human beings, we resist this truth. We cling to what we know, fearing that without it we will not survive. But the reality is, we do not just survive, we transform. So if you are sitting here today feeling the weight of loss pressing upon you, let me tell you this: you are not broken, you are not defeated, you are not less because something has been taken from you. You are simply being stripped of everything that was never truly yours so that you can finally meet the person who was waiting beneath it all, yourself. And when you find yourself, you will see that what you once called a loss was actually your greatest victory, because in losing what you thought you needed, you gained what was truly yours all along. You gained yourself. And that, dear ones, is the greatest win of all. What is truly ours to lose?
Dear ladies and gentlemen, there is a moment in life when we stand at the edge of everything we have known, looking down into the abyss of loss. It is a moment that strips us of certainty, security, and the illusions we've built around ourselves. It arrives unannounced, without warning, shattering everything we once believed was permanent. The person we loved walks away. The dream we nurtured dissolves. The identity we carried so proudly no longer fits. And in that moment, when everything falls apart, we are left with one lingering thought: I have lost. There is something deeply unsettling about loss. It is not just about what disappears from our lives. It is about the stories we told ourselves that suddenly collapse. We believed that love was meant to last forever. We believed that our plans would unfold exactly as we had imagined. We believed that who we were yesterday would be who we are tomorrow. But loss has a way of dismantling these beliefs, forcing us to confront a truth we spend most of our lives avoiding. Nothing is truly ours to hold on to. And so we grieve. We grieve not just for what we have lost, but for the certainty that has been taken from us. We grieve for the comfort of knowing who we are in relation to another person, another goal, another version of ourselves. When those things are gone, we are left standing in an unfamiliar landscape, wondering where to go next. At first, we resist. We search for answers, trying to make sense of why things unfolded the way they did. We replay memories, looking for clues, hoping that if we piece them together, we will find a way back to what once was. We bargain with fate, believing that if we had done something differently, We could have prevented the loss. We hold on, clinging to the past as if by sheer willpower we can bring back what is already gone. But life does not work that way. The past is not a place we can return to, no matter how much we long for it. And the more we resist, the more we suffer. Because what truly causes pain is not the loss itself, but our refusal to accept it. And yet, within this pain, within this darkness, there is something waiting to be discovered. A truth so profound that once we embrace it, it changes everything. The truth that loss is not the end of us, that what is taken from us is never what defines us, that beneath the grief, beneath the sorrow, there is something untouched, unbroken, unshaken, our own essence. Because here is what we often fail to see in the midst of our suffering. Loss does not diminish us, it reveals us. It strips away the layers we built around ourselves, exposing the core of who we truly are. It removes the distractions, the attachments, the external sources of validation, forcing us to look inward. And in that inward journey, we come face to face with the only thing that ever truly belonged to us, ourselves. There is a silence that follows loss, an emptiness that can feel unbearable at first. But if you allow yourself to sit in that silence, if you do not rush to fill the void with new distractions, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to hear a voice that was once drowned out by the noise of everything and everyone else. The voice of your own soul. The voice of the person you have always been. Beyond the roles you played, beyond the identities you carried, beyond the illusions you clung to. And in that moment, something shifts. You begin to realize that what you thought was an ending was actually an unveiling. That the person you lost, the dream that crumbled, the identity that no longer fits, they were never the source of your strength. They were never the foundation of your being. They were only mirrors, reflecting back to you what was already inside. And now, without them, you see clearly. Because when you lose everything you thought you needed, you are left with the one thing you truly need, yourself. And that, dear ones, is not a loss. That is a victory. It takes courage to walk away from the ruins of what was and step into the unknown of what could be. It takes strength to stand alone, to rebuild not from what is familiar, but from what is true. It takes faith to trust that life is not taking something from you, but guiding you towards something greater. Look at the world around you. The river does not mourn when it is forced to change its course. The tree does not fight when its leaves fall in autumn. The night does not resist the coming of dawn. Everything in nature understands that loss is not an end, but a transformation. And yet, as humans, we fear this process. We see it as destruction rather than evolution. We resist change, not realizing that in our resistance, we only prolong our suffering. But when we surrender, when we stop fighting what is already gone, when we stop clinging to what no longer serves us, something miraculous happens. We find freedom. Freedom from dependence, freedom from illusions, freedom from the belief that our worth is tied to anything outside of us. We step into our own power, no longer defined by what we have or who stands beside us, but by the strength we carry within. So yes, I lost you, and yes, it hurt. It broke me open in ways I never expected. But in that breaking, I discovered something I had long forgotten. I discovered myself. And in finding myself, I won. And that, my friends, is a victory no loss can ever take away. Dear ladies and gentlemen, there is a moment in life when you realize that what you feared the most has already happened. The loss you never thought you could survive is now a reality. The person who was once the center of your world is gone. The life you spent years building has collapsed. The certainty you clung to has disappeared. And now you stand in the aftermath, staring at the empty space where everything once was, asking yourself, what now? Loss is not just the absence of something or someone. It is the tearing apart of the world as we knew it. It is the unraveling of the story we believed we were living. It is the moment when all the plans, all the dreams, all the expectations we carried are suddenly meaningless. And in that moment, the pain is not just in what we have lost, but in the question that echoes through the silence. Who am I without this? For so long, we build ourselves around people, around achievements, around relationships, around the things we own. We say, this is my partner, this is my career, this is my dream, this is my life. And we believe that as long as we hold on to these things, we will always know who we are. But life has a way of stripping us bare, not to punish us, not to break us, but to show us what lies beneath the layers we have wrapped ourselves in. Because the truth is, the things we cling to were never who we truly were. At first, the loss feels unbearable. There is an emptiness that seems to stretch endlessly. We look around and nothing feels the same. The world continues to move. People laugh, the sun rises and sets. But inside us, there is a stillness, a silence that we don't know how to fill. We think back to the past, replaying memories, trying to hold on to moments that have already faded. We try to understand, to make sense of why things happened the way they did. We search for reasons, for explanations, for something to make the pain feel less sharp. But the truth is, there are moments in life that logic cannot soften. No reason can erase the ache of something we love slipping through our fingers. And yet, in the depths of that pain, something remarkable begins to happen. We start to see that we are still here. That even in the absence of what we thought we needed, we continue to exist. We continue to breathe. We continue to wake up each morning. And slowly we begin to realize that the thing we thought we couldn't live without is gone. And yet we are still alive. This is the moment when the shift begins. When the loss that once felt like the end of us starts to reveal itself as something else entirely. It is not just an ending, it is a clearing. It is a space being created, not for something to be taken away, but for something new to emerge. Because in losing what we thought defined us, we are given the rarest of opportunities, the chance to redefine ourselves. Imagine a forest that has been burned to the ground. At first, all that remains is ash. The trees that once stood tall are gone. The life that once flourished is no more. And if you were to stand there, in the midst of the destruction, you would think that nothing could ever grow again, but nature knows better. Beneath the ashes, the soil is richer than it has ever been. The space where the old trees once stood is now open for new life to take root. And soon, small shoots begin to push through the ground. Life begins again, not despite the destruction, but because of it. This is what happens to us in loss. The fire may have burned away what was familiar, but it has also made space for something new. And that something new is not outside of us, it is within us. Because in the absence of the things we once relied on, we are forced to look inward. And what we find there is something we had forgotten: ourselves. There is a certain strength that can only be found in solitude, a certain clarity that only comes when the noise of the world fades away. When we stop defining ourselves by who we are to others, by what we own, by the labels we carry, we come face to face with something far more real, the self that exists beyond all of it, the self that was always there, waiting beneath the surface, untouched by loss, untouched by change. You see, the real tragedy is not in losing others. It is in losing ourselves while trying to hold on to them. It is in shrinking, in bending, in molding ourselves to fit into places where we no longer belong. It is in sacrificing our truth for the sake of comfort, for the illusion of permanence. And so when loss arrives, it does not just take, it reveals. It forces us to see the ways in which we have abandoned ourselves, the ways in which we have placed our happiness in things that were never meant to last. And when we finally see that, we begin to understand that what we lost was never truly ours to begin with. Because the truth is, we are not meant to stay the same. We are not meant to live the same stories forever. Life is movement, transformation, evolution, and sometimes that evolution requires endings. Sometimes it requires us to let go, to release, to trust that what is falling away is only making space for what is meant to come. So, yes, I lost you. I lost a dream. I lost a certainty. I lost a version of myself that once felt so safe. And for a long time, I thought that meant I had lost everything. But then, in the quiet and the stillness that followed, I realized something. I had not lost myself. And in that moment, I understood that I had won something far greater. I won my freedom. I won my strength. I won the chance to rebuild, not from a place of fear, but from a place of truth. And that, dear ones, is a victory no loss can ever take away. Dear ladies and gentlemen, there is a moment in life when you feel as though the ground beneath you has disappeared. A moment when everything you held close, everything you built, everything you believed in is suddenly gone. The person you once called your own walks away. The plans you made so carefully fall apart. The life you envisioned for yourself no longer exists. And in that moment, you feel an emptiness so vast, so consuming, that it seems as though nothing will ever fill it again. Loss arrives unannounced. It does not knock on the door politely. It does not ask if you are ready. It comes like a storm, tearing through everything familiar, leaving behind silence, confusion, and an aching void. It does not care for your preparations, your expectations, or your hopes. It takes what it must, without apology, without explanation. And when it leaves you alone with nothing but the echoes of what once was. At first, the pain is unbearable. It is as if you are walking through a world that no longer recognizes you, a world that continues moving forward while you remain stuck in the past. Every familiar place becomes a reminder. Every memory replays like an unfinished story. Every breath feels heavier than the last. You wonder if the pain will ever fade, if the ache in your chest will ever ease. You wonder if you will ever feel whole again. And yet, beneath the sorrow, beneath the grief, beneath the weight of all that has been lost, there is something else, something waiting, something quiet, something that you may not recognize at first, yourself. Not the self that existed in relation to what was lost, not the self that was defined by another person, another dream, another identity, but the self that has always been there. Beneath it all, the self that remains even when everything else is taken away. You see, loss is not just about what is gone, it is about what is left behind. And what is left behind when all the layers have been stripped away is the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. For so long, you defined yourself by the things around you, by the love you received, by the roles you played, by the comfort of what was familiar. But now, without all of that, you are forced to see yourself clearly, perhaps for the first time. And in that clarity, there's a quiet realization. The realization that you were never truly dependent on those things to begin with, that your existence, your worth, your strength were never tied to what you lost. Loss forces us to confront the stories we have told ourselves. The story that we are incomplete without another person. The story that happiness is found in external things. The story that our lives must follow a certain path in order to be meaningful. And when those stories collapse, when the illusions fall away, we are left with a truth that is both terrifying and liberating. Nothing outside of us defines who we are. Nothing outside of us can truly complete us. But it takes time to see this. At first, we resist, we hold on, desperate to rebuild what has been taken. We fight to make sense of the senseless, to bring back what is already left. We try to fill the emptiness with distractions, with new attachments, with anything that will make us forget the ache of what is missing. But loss does not allow for shortcuts. It demands that we feel every ounce of pain, that we sit in the discomfort, that we face ourselves in the mirror without the filters of the past. It demands that we let go, not just of what we lost, but of the illusion that we ever needed it to be whole. And when we finally surrender to this truth, something shifts. The emptiness we feared so much begins to feel less like a void and more like a space where something new can grow, a space where we can meet ourselves again without the weight of expectations, without the noise of the world telling us who we should be, a space where we can begin, not from the remnants of what was, but from the possibility of what can be. Think of the seasons. When winter arrives, it strips the trees bare, taking away the leaves that once gave them beauty. The branches stand empty, exposed, vulnerable. But does the tree mourn? Does it resist? No. It stands in stillness and quiet acceptance, knowing that the loss of its leaves is not the end, but a necessary step in its cycle of growth. And when the time is right, the tree does not try to bring back the old leaves. It does not try to recreate what was. Instead, it allows new leaves to grow, new life to emerge. This is how we must face loss, not as an ending, but as a beginning, not as a punishment, but as a transformation. Because every loss is a clearing of what no longer serves us, a clearing of what we outgrew, a clearing of what was never truly ours to keep. And within that clearing, within that space, we have the chance to plant new seeds, the seeds of self-discovery, of strength, of a life that is built not on dependency, but on true freedom. So yes, I lost you. I lost the life I once knew, the certainty I once held, the dreams I once built my world around. But in that loss, I found something far greater. I found the part of me that cannot be taken away, the part of me that exists beyond attachments, beyond expectations, beyond illusions. I found the self that is whole, even in solitude, the self that is strong, even in uncertainty, the self that is free. And in that discovery, I did not just survive, I won. Because the greatest victory is not in holding on, but in having the courage to let go. And that, dear ones, is a victory no loss can ever take away.
As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body.